Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome back to another video of the PCOS newsletter. So I thought of doing some more videos because frankly I really love recording, and also I feel like some of the stuff that I'm trying to explain is quite complex, and sometimes I get lost within my writing as well. So for those that love to read, this will be in the form of text, but also for those that love to listen to things and have more of an audio preference, this will be available. I'll try to do more of them when appropriate. There's certain topics that I feel like they're more important to have more of a video format, but for some of them it's better text. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you so much for being here. It's been more than 6 months now that I'm writing the newsletter every single Sunday. I'll be very honest, I'm very proud of myself for being very consistent, but I'm also very thankful for you for being there. We're nearly at 500 subscribers, which is insane. I would want to thank you for sharing the newsletter. I want to thank you for being there. But obviously, if you know anyone that has PCOS, please consider sharing it, because it helps me, but it also, I feel like the work that I'm putting in, it reaches more and more people. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So in today's topic, we're going to discuss ovulation. I have touched on fertility over the past two or three newsletters, and I think it's such an important topic for PCOS because it is unfortunately one of the saddest way that this condition impacts us. And I want to discuss a bit why we don't sometimes ovulate. I sometimes don't ovulate, and obviously the main symptom of not ovulating is irregular periods and the cysts that you get on your ovaries. And there are 3 different reasons that research is finding to explain why some women with PCOS don't ovulate. The first one, it is an imbalance within the ratio between luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. The second one is there seems to be our ovary cells seem to be slightly more sensitive to luteinizing hormone. And thirdly is excess insulin in the blood. I'm going to go into detail about all of these just so we can actually understand how it impacts our ability to ovulate. But these are the 3 different kind of mechanisms behind failed ovulation, or how research likes to call it anovulation. I think that's how you pronounce it, but lovely. So before we dive into the why, obviously we need to recap a bit how ovulation works and why it happens. So obviously ovulation serves the purpose of reproduction. We are at a biological level meant to work for evolution, for reproduction, to keep the species going. And obviously our body has this it gives us this monthly chance of us actually reproduce, and it does come in the form of ovulation. The way that it works is that obviously we're born with all our eggs, and these eggs live within a follicle. And this follicle are fluid-filled sacs. They basically, I like to think about them like the house of our eggs. And these follicles basically get promoting or put forward at the beginning of our cycle. They start getting a blood supply up to 3 months before they actually get put forward for a cycle, which is why it's important to leave between 3 months and 6 months to see results when you make changes for PCOS. But I will get into that into another topic. But basically this follicles gets put forward, and somewhere in the cycle after your period, when a new cycle starts, one primary follicle gets chosen. And this primary follicle, as we will see here, develops till it reaches, that ovulation day. And the ovulation day within this picture says 14 days. Sometimes it's later, sometimes it's sooner. And there are ways to actually track ovulation that I'll dive deeper into another newsletter. But at that day 14, basically it ruptures. That follicle ruptures, the egg gets released. If it basically goes down the fallopian tube, and obviously if it meets a sperm, it does get is it called fecundated? I'm gonna have to check that, but it basically can lead to an embryo formation. I need to check the exact term that's called, so I'll insert it here afterwards. But that gets released. What's left behind is called the corpus luteum. That's the thing that actually releases progesterone. And then easily, as we progress towards getting our period, if obviously we have not get pregnant, if you didn't get pregnant, then it dissolves. The issue in women with PCOS is that that follicle does not get developed fully. So it doesn't mature. And because it doesn't mature, in a normal ovary, it grows, releases, and then it gets dissolved. In a polycystic ovary, unfortunately, these follicles get developed, but they never reach that peak moment where they release an egg. So what's left behind are these kind of immature follicles that then they turn into cysts. And that's where obviously you see within a scan, what the doctor might tell you they have polycystic ovaries. And obviously because the egg doesn't get released, it means that we don't ovulate, we get no period, and it might be harder for us to get pregnant. Now, the question that I always ask myself, and this is how I got to know PCOS and myself, is I always ask the question why. Why is that follicle not developing fully? And the answer relies on what I've mentioned in the beginning, this imbalance between LH and FSH, but also the sensitivity to LH. So this follicle gets developed under the influence of estrogen. The higher the estrogen, the mature it gets, till it reaches this kind of saturation point where it gets released. But how do we get estrogen? So let's talk about that. So estrogen obviously is made within our ovaries, and something that I never knew till obviously about 5 years ago, once I've gotten into this topic and I went studying it, is that actually estrogen gets converted from testosterone. So within our brain, basically, we release follicle stimulating hormone, and this follicle stimulating hormone has the ability to transform testosterone into estrogen. Now, what makes testosterone? That is the question. So this is the other part of the puzzle, which is the luteinizing hormone. So the luteinizing hormone within our brain acts on the ovaries, stimulates the ovaries to create testosterone, which actually comes from cholesterol, which is another topic and another story, but it's cholesterol, testosterone, and estrogen. But basically, luteinizing hormone creates this need for testosterone in the ovaries, and then follicle stimulating hormones comes in and transforms it into estrogen. I hope that this kind of diagram shows it quite well. So what happens in women with PCOS? In women with PCOS, unfortunately, we have higher level of LH, so higher levels of luteinizing hormone. Because this level is higher, it means that we tell our ovaries to make more testosterone. And follicle stimulating hormone doesn't quite meet the standards to actually transform all of this testosterone within estrogen. So you get this imbalance where there's too much luteinizing hormone, but there's not enough follicle stimulating hormone in order for it to act on the testosterone to be converted to estrogen. In addition to a higher level of luteinizing hormone, it does seem that our ovary cells are also a bit sensitive to luteinizing hormone. There's a very interesting difference here between lean PCOS and overweight or obese PCOS women. It seems that in women that are lean, there are higher levels of luteinizing hormones. Sometimes in women that are obese or overweight, it seems like the luteinizing hormone levels are fine, but it's more the sensitivity of the ovaries to produce testosterone that is the issue, which is fascinating. Why that happens, very unknown, but there are these two things that basically make testosterone to be higher. So what we end up with is this excess testosterone, not enough quite estrogen to kind of make that follicle grow, which arrests the follicle and it doesn't mature it. Now, why? There's not enough data, it's not even the data, it's just there's not a clear theory or a clear mechanism why this happens. One of the proposed reasons it could be that when we were in our mother's womb, it might be that we got exposed to higher testosterone levels from the mother, and that has created this kind of genetic issue where we produce too much luteinizing hormone. But that's also not fully proven. So I'll take that with a pinch of salt. It obviously becomes more of a formed, theory. So because of this, we get that excess testosterone. Obviously, that excess testosterone leads to other unwanted symptoms that we know of. So the cells of our skin, but also the cells of our hair, like in different parts of the body, have receptors for testosterone. And when that testosterone is high, obviously, it means that those cells react and you get excess acne, excess hair, etc., etc. Now, this is the part of luteinizing hormone and FSH, but also there is the part of insulin. So the way that insulin acts on this whole mechanism is that excess insulin has the ability to further drive luteinizing hormone upwards, but it also has the ability to speed up that conversion from the ovaries to testosterone. So it can have an impact on both our hypothalamus, where our luteinizing hormone comes from, but also on our ovaries. And it's very interesting because in all my blood test results, I've never quite gotten a high luteinizing hormone result. So I do think I'm more on that category where is the insulin that is driving the testosterone, because the moment that I, eat well, take my inositol, take my chromium, exercise, I do not get the same symptoms of when I don't. So for me, it's definitely an element of insulin resistance going on. But all of these are here to kind of give you a bit of an understanding of a clue of what might happen. I think blood test work can really, really help. And I'm going to have another newsletter coming up, I think either next week or the week after, where we discuss the blood tests that I would recommend to get to understand a bit the picture of your PCOS. But all of this can help us understand what's going on. And if you're not ovulating and you're trying to want to have a baby or try to conceive, knowing why and knowing what's going on and making changes could actually help you ovulate. For me personally, inositol, chromium, exercise. I exercise between 4 and 5 times a week, and obviously very good nutrition. I tend to go slightly lower carb. I don't no keto involved or anything, but I do choose lower carbohydrates or a low GI carbohydrates. Make sure to have the right level of protein, the right level of fiber, the right level of fat within my diet really, really helps. And I do ovulate. Of course, these things will not work for everyone. And that's why it's important for you to understand exactly what's going on and work with someone to understand what's going on. So you create a plan where ovulation comes back. That's it. I really hope you enjoyed to kind of understand a bit what happens within the mechanisms of not ovulating. I hope this gave you another insight into your body. And as usual, please share. And obviously we'd love to have you subscribe also on YouTube here, but also on the PCOS newsletter. Have a lovely day. Bye.